All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is the
Hello.
inaugural live show for the Eat Shit and Live Book Club. I'm here with my friend Kathy. We read The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackwith. Kathy, for anyone who doesn't know you, would you like
Mhm.
to tell everyone about yourself and like plug your stuff a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kathy Trithart. I'm fairly easy to find on the internet, if you can spell my name, that is, which is the difficult part. I am also the co-creator of the Queer Lit Readathon, and our 10th round is starting on Sunday, so that's a good time. You can find that at queer_lit on Twitter or Instagram, or just go to my channel. It's covered in Queer Lit related videos. And yeah, I've been on the platform for 7 years, 6 years specifically BookTube, and the other day I just posted my 1000th video, so I'm not going anywhere.
Another thing I like about Kathy's channel, besides the fact that you do like focus heavily on like queer literature, disabled literature, BIPOC books, is your weekly wrap ups. They're really
Mhm.
fun and I love them because you don't just talk about books on your channel. Like that's the primary thing that you talk about, but it's also like movies and TV shows and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I mean, like, all of those other types of stories are just equally as valid. So, like, if I'm going to be talking about, like, the things I'm reading, I might as well talk about those things as well, even if I don't go super in depth, because obviously, like, there's only so much you can say about, hey, I'm on this fifth season of House. He's still an asshole. Like, there's not much you can really, unless you really want to break things down and know it's a wrap up. It's not like a full on review. So,
Okay, so the premise of the Eat Shit and Live book club is I have two different ways that I'm doing this. So I am taking people who do not usually read a lot of horror, have a heavy horror focus on their channel, and we are figuring out things that they like in the genre, what they are interested in reading further. I think one of the questions I asked you was like books, movies, TV shows, like what is like a piece of, horror media that you've enjoyed in the past like 5 years. And
mhm,
we settled on the Library of the Unwritten because
mhm.
one thing that I think about with Kathy, it's like synonymous with your channel, is like books about books.
Yeah. Definitely love my books about books, love my anything about books. So, yes.
Another thing that I was really pleased with this too was the queer representation in it.
Mhm.
I remembered people saying that there was like pansexual representation, but I didn't realize that like all of the characters basically were like some shade of queer. So that was
Mhm.
really refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's always really nice when that just, like it's just slid in there, like, it's not a big thing, it's not, like, big part of the marketing or anything, but, like, you're like, "Oh, all of these people just happen to be queer. This feels like just hanging out with my queer friends." It's great.
Now, do you want to give us like a brief summary of the book? I figure we do the summary and then we talk about our favorite scenes, our favorite parts. We can talk about characters. We can talk about the magic system and the world building because that's like a really big part of this book. And
Yeah,
then we can get into spoilers
yes.
in like the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, a brief synopsis of what this is there is a library that is located in hell, but not run by hell, called the Library of the Unwritten, which is where all of the books that are unwritten, so either their authors just haven't written them yet, or their authors died before writing them, all of those books exist in this library. Aw. And and there's a librarian who watches over these books, and occasionally things go wrong with these books, like people from like different, say, hell or that type of thing are allowed to take these books out for some reason, and there's a whole interlibrary loan system, which I love to see because I used to work doing the interlibrary loans when I worked in a library, so I love seeing that. But occasionally these books also just manifest themselves into being a character from the book and then go rogue. And of course, we know this because this happens at the beginning of this book. So all of a sudden, our librarian has to go down to earth and like find this book that's gone rogue. And in the process of doing that, gets in a scuffle with an angel. And then suddenly we have a hell versus heaven whole adventure situation to rectify what's going on. That's the most basic way I can tell you about what this is.
I was really surprised with how in depth they were like leaning into the like war with heaven thing. I was
Yeah.
like, when I realized this was not horror, which is kind of the point of the book club, but it's a dark fantasy, so it still works.
Yeah.
Um, I was surprised with the heaven. Like I figured naturally, what is the antithesis? What is the perfect antagonist for someone who works in hell of someone who works for heaven? But I
Mhm.
was surprised. Yeah, what did you think about that?
Well, I liked the whole concept of how, like, if you are one of the ones that's gonna go to hell, I guess, like, you're given the punishment that, like, fits you. So, like, somebody who would have been an author becoming the librarian or the librarian assistant because you start as an assistant, and then the person above you eventually, like, finishes their tenure or whatever and moves on or whatever happens to them. No spoilers right now. So I kind of liked seeing that kind of incorporated, but it's also really interesting that even though she's in hell, she doesn't work for hell, and she's always like, "Yeah, no, they have nothing to do with me. I just happen to work here, sir." Like, I always found that really, really interesting because, like, she's gonna be there for hundreds of years. I'm just like, if you think about all of the people that die and all of the people that have done something that they deem is going to have them in hell. I mean, not everybody's going to have the same belief structure, so not everybody's going to end up in hell, but like, how many different weird jobs are there in and around hell that people have to do? Like, I don't even understand, but it's really fascinating to think about.
Yeah, can I be like the infernal janitor or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, who knows? Like, you were a shitty person in life and now you're cleaning up shit every day. Who you
So one thing that you mentioned is we don't just talk about like hell, like people have different belief systems and stuff. So we also see a couple of other variations of the afterlife, the underworld.
Mhm.
The biggest one is probably Valhalla. That's where they
Yeah, that
spend
was the
the
one we
most
spent the
time.
most time in the book. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, yeah, it was just interesting to see stuff like that because, like, there are little bits and pieces of mythology that people tend to be familiar with, and even if they don't know a ton about it, like, especially because of, like, Marvel flicks, people are gonna know what Valhalla is. So it was cool to see them spend a bunch of time there and, like, bring in a bunch of mythology that, like, it made me wanna look it up afterwards because I'm not super well versed, but, like, it's also fascinating. So, like, spending a bunch of time there and then having these 2 different duels going on at the same time, I thought was really cool.
The dueling scenes were very cool. That was the switch for me where I was like, okay, I'm in.
Mhm.
Because I had like a weird journey with this book. I wanted to DNF it, and then I was loving it, and then yeah, it was very peaks and valleys. But the dueling scene, if you haven't read the book and you're here watching, Claire, our librarian, is kind of having a duel of words against. Um,
A previous
I can't
librarian.
remember his name right
Yeah, his he was something the Bard, I can't remember his name either, but he was a previous librarian from, like, 300 years ago or something.
and then Hero, who is our book character come to life, who is just
Mhm.
a goofball, but he's like a good time. I was very suspicious of him the whole time, by the way.
Oh,
He
same, same, same.
he is having like an actual like weapon duel, like what you think of as a battle. But
Mhm,
the magic, specifically in the way that the word duel was going on, I think was what really sucked me in. I was like, oh, this is different. Like, what
mhm.
else are we gonna get?
Yeah, and a little bit of that for me was like, wow, I would fail this duel because I can't just pull famous quotes out of my butt. Like that's not a thing I can do. And also, like as an actual person who works at a library, you don't just sit there all day reading and memorizing quotes. So like a little bit of that I found a little bit humorous, but also like super fun because she's gonna be there for hundreds of years. So she actually does have the time to sit there and memorize quotes and stuff like that. So it's just funny to think about this concept of a library and then like how libraries actually function, which is just so different, but also like all this different overlap. I really liked it.
And then we get to see another form of the afterlife that I also found really interesting. It is the afterlife belief system of a dead religion, and it
Mhm.
takes different inspirations, I guess, from religions that I'm familiar with, at least, like the ancient Egyptian belief system of the crocodile and weighing your heart and stuff
Yeah,
like
the
that.
feather thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then there's also like a labyrinth and like kind of a Greek vibe that's all tied together. So I
Mhm.
thought that was really interesting. How'd you feel about that?
I personally got really excited about the whole labyrinth thing because that's based on like this place that's on Crete. It's called Knossos, and I actually visited there when I went to Greece. So I was just like, I know what this is because I went there that one time. Oh yeah, which is how I feel about a lot of things when I read books and I just happen to go to places I've been. Like they ended up in Seattle when they were looking for Hero, and I was like, hey, I go there sometimes. It's just a ferry ride away from me. So I'm a dork like that.
Now, talking about Hero, he was probably my favorite character in the book. Um, who were some of the standouts for you? Because this was a character-driven novel, I would say. Like, there's a plot, but the characters really carry
Yeah, you had to really care about what the characters were doing and, like, learning more about the characters, otherwise, I could totally see how you would lose interest in this because it does go from here to here to here to here to here really quickly. I really liked and I'm terrible at names, and I read this at the beginning of the month, so I can't remember her name, but the Muse character, the assistant librarian character, I can't remember her name.
it. Brevity.
Thank you. Yes, I was like, it starts with a B, but I cannot remember her name. Brevity, I really liked that character. I really liked her whole backstory of like she started out as a muse, but then she took some of that inspiration for herself, and they were like, "Well, you can't be a muse anymore." Eh. I really enjoyed seeing that because it's like her just coming into her own and like figuring out like what she wants to do. And yeah, again, no spoilers, but it's going to be really interesting to continue and see what these characters are going to do after what happened at the end of this book because I don't know.
I thought Brevity was a lot of fun, and her character arc was like a really satisfying one.
Hmm.
Like we said, no spoilers. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
But I really liked seeing her kind of come into her own throughout the
Hmm.
story. Another character that I really liked, I can't remember his name, was the demon boy
Hmm.
who also
Leto,
had
I think was his name.
he also had a really satisfying arc, which we can talk about later. But he was just really fun because he didn't really know what he was doing there. He was just like, yeah.
Yeah, he was our fish out of water character, so he's basically like a little bit of the stand-in for the reader, just being like, "How does all this hell work?" And like a really good vessel for the author to be like, "Yes, this is how things work. I am showing you around." Also, did you not notice that you don't remember anything? Like, you're gonna figure this out, right? I'm gonna help you. It's gonna be good.
And how did you feel about Claire as a protagonist? Because I feel like with her, I went through the most up and down.
I didn't really have a problem with her. I didn't have a lot like I don't know. Out of all of the characters, I think I felt the least connected, but not in a way where I like didn't like her. I just thought that like I didn't really know a lot about her until we got to kind of the more of the end, which is totally fine in my opinion. I just like she feels like she is the protagonist, so you would feel like you would learn the most about her, and I guess we did learn more about her, but it just felt like we spent way more time learning about the other point of view characters before getting to her, which is just a little bit weird because she's our first point of view character. So I always feel like we're supposed to learn the most about that person first, but that's not a hard and fast rule, so it was fine.
I feel like it was also intentionally done because Claire gets quite a few reveals throughout the book.
Yeah.
Um, but it did take me aback a little bit because I was like, oh, why am I not caring about like the main character of the story? Why do I like the side
Hmm.
characters better? Which is not strange for me. That's usually how it goes. But
Yeah.
I was kind of suspicious of her the whole time. Like the whole time I was reading it, I was like, she's not telling us something, and I understand that it's for plot related reasons, but I want to know what they are right now, please and thank you.
I mean, the same thing can be said about Hero. Like, I was super suspicious of Hero the whole time, down to the fact like he named himself Hero, and I was like, no, no, bro, I'm onto you.
So let's see what else is there to talk about in this book. I know we said spoilers in the last 15 minutes, but I feel like we can't really talk about the plot too much without talking about spoilers because it's so twisty.
Yeah, there is so much. I guess the other thing that we should mention is like out of the four point of view characters, three of them are from or in and around hell. And then we have the one that's from heaven, the one angel character. So it was just interesting to have, firstly, that balance of like 3 to 1 was interesting to me. Also, just like the weirdness of that structure and the weirdness of that character messed up at some point and has been paying for it for like millennia was super weird for me. Not in a bad way, but, like, I felt bad for him, strangely. I don't know, I don't know how to talk about him, really.
I think it's interesting to put it at a 3-to-1 ratio because, in a way, I think his name was Ramiel.
Yes, it was.
Um, in a way, he is also a character of hell. Now, I'm not considering this a spoiler because, it's in the Bible, and can you spoil the Bible? Um, but he was one of the fallen angels who, like, went down with Lucifer. So, like, he has been punished now almost in the same way that Claire has been punished. Like, I viewed them kind of like as the antithesis of each other. Personally, I don't think being a librarian for years and years and years would be a punishment, but it's the job that she's been assigned, and Ramiel has kind of been assigned it's kind of like a purgatory situation where
Yeah.
he like sits at a desk and he takes all the souls. He's like, okay, you go back there to purgatory. So I thought it was interesting um, that like even the heavenly perspective character was also in some way tied to hell.
Yeah, I did find that interesting as well because, like, when it comes down to it, like, they're both just kind of paper pushers. If you really like, they obviously have different tasks they do, but a lot of it is just like administrative work, and it's on both sides. So,
It's like they can both work from home in the pandemic. It's
yeah,
fine.
exactly. They're not affected at all.
So one other thing I want to talk about before we get into spoilers, because it just popped into mind, are
Mhm,
the idea that like basically the concept of the book, right? That the Library of Hell is all of the books that never got written by their
mhm,
authors. And Hero isn't the only one we see. We also see like some side characters. They call them the damsels because usually the damsel is the main character of a lot of like, romancy early writing stuff that doesn't ever get written.
mhm,
I thought it was really interesting to see them um, kind of come in. I just wish that we would have gotten to see a few more of the
mhm.
unwritten characters, and I'm hoping we get that in the sequel because, like you, I am kind of invested, and I am planning on reading the sequels.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see, like, under different management, what kind of characters come out of books because we were kind of told it was like, a main character, and like it makes sense that it'd be a main character to like be the person showing up for a book, but like it would be really interesting to see what kind of other types of characters show up. Like I really want there to just be like a dragon because like why not? Just a dragon that hangs out and was from this one book that never got written or won't be written because that author recently died. Like you could throw some George R. R. Martin shade in there or something. I don't know.
For sure, I think we did have some like not human characters, but I think like having a dragon or something
Yeah.
that is totally not humanoid at all would be like
Yeah.
super fun.
Yeah, it would be cool.
Okay, so I guess now we can dive into spoilers. So if you haven't read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, skedaddle and then come back and watch this whenever we're done.
Yeah.
Um, 3, 2, 1, bye. Let's talk about some of these twists. Which one do you want to talk about first? What do you have the most thoughts and feelings about?
Oh, oh goodness, because there were a bunch. Like, can we talk about Hero and how like we knew that? Well, I didn't know that he wasn't the hero, but I spent a lot of time going like, you're not the good guy from your book, are you? Or like, there's something off about you, and I just need to know what it is.
I was like, the whole time I was reading it, I was like, I bet Hero's your middle name and your first name is Anti because you're giving me that like morally gray kind of.
Mhm,
I don't like comparing books to other books necessarily, but it almost felt like he would have felt very at home in like the Six of Crows universe.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I could see that for sure. Yeah. And I found it really interesting that, like, because they just assumed that he was a good guy because that's the kind of characters that usually the books become or whatever. But then, like, he was doing super weird stuff, like cutting out his own pages and giving them to his author. And I was just like, would a hero do that? Like, I can see why you would think that would be good intentions, but also I can see why I was sketched out by you from the beginning. I didn't know how to feel about him, but the fact that he like named himself hero, I was like, there's no way that you're actually the hero of this book. If you were, you would have given yourself the name that you would eventually have in the book.
Part of me was wondering that too. Like, did he actually have a name in the book, or was the book so unwritten that the author
Mhm.
hadn't even given him a name yet?
Yeah, yeah, that always is the chance as well, but, like, yeah, I had so many questions about him. I was like, "Okay, dude, what is gonna happen? Are you eventually gonna go back into your book? What's gonna happen?" Like, the whole, tying them to her power thing was also super interesting to me. So he couldn't really go missing anymore, but, like, he was kind of, like, forced into doing things for her, which he really wasn't because they were like, "Well, if this person doesn't actually wanna fight for you, then they don't have to." And he was like, "Okay, I'll do it. It's fine, I guess."
I really liked him, and I like his overall character arc. I would say that ending, whenever he was dying, I was like, I will admit that I shed a couple tears. I was like, oh no, you've annoyed me this entire time, and now I want you to live.
I know. How dare you, sir? Like, come on. Yeah, I know it's always great when they can turn it around on you like that. I really liked also the evil reveal of the archivist character that was just like along the for the whole time being a mentor and then like, no, I want your library. Like, all right, cool.
I will say that the archivist character felt very just like kind of big bad villain, like rubbing your hands together in the background sort of
Mm,
thing. I was suspicious of everyone, but
mhm.
I was never like super suspicious of him because I was like, oh, this is someone that Claire has a rapport with. He mentored her, he taught her things, completely forgetting the entire time about the fact that he is a demon from hell.
I think the fact that he was a demon from hell is why I didn't think he was going to be the bad guy of this book because like we already like assume that all demons are bad guys or whatever like that. So it's like, oh yeah, but in this ecosystem of people, like everybody's a bad person or whatever. So I didn't like it kind of took him off my radar for who was going to be causing all of this shit because like yeah, it's just another bad person from the bad person place. So what?
I also think because AJ Hackworth did a very good job at painting um, the other angel, other than Ramiel,
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
being like the big bad. I was
Yeah.
expecting it to come down between, our little hell squad and her.
Yeah.
And then I was
Yeah.
like, Ramiel can go wherever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that yeah, the author definitely did a good idea. Yeah, I agree with what you just said.
But yeah, he was off my radar, but I think it also could be like you said because it's like, oh, he's just another person from this place where all of these characters are from, and we know that not every single one of these characters is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Now, the side plot with like the Devil's Codex, the Devil's
Mhm.
Dictionary, I can't remember what the official name for it was.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I think it was a codex, maybe.
I kind of kept forgetting that that was happening.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird challenge because, like, why would you, like, write this hell thing and then leave it on Earth somewhere? Like, I don't understand why you would have done that as the devil. Like, just keep your own shit in your own place. Like, did you think people were going to go into your helly office and take your shit? Like, I didn't understand why. He just decided he needed to leave that, and then the whole, like, switch around of whether or not somebody has the real one or not, and, like, I didn't care about that at all, to be honest.
So first off, I love the idea that the Devil has like a CEO office in
Right?
like some hell skyscraper.
Right.
Um, my thing with the whole Devil's Codex, like I thought that the twist was going to be that there was no Devil's Codex, and that was just going to be an unwritten book that
Hmm.
he had somehow taken with him, and then we were going to get like a fictionalized version of the Devil being the big bad. That was something that popped into my head.
That could have definitely been cool, actually. I really liked the whole switch well, not the switch up, the whole thing of finding out that Claire had let one of her books go and was just out there in the world and nobody knew about it. I liked that a lot. It was a really weird take to have, especially because it like worked into that whole city where the hellhounds couldn't get in for some reason. I can't remember exactly why. Magic. Magic is the reason. But I kind of liked that. I liked that there was like this whole other character that she was totally in love with, but hadn't seen since she had just like let her go because she had to become the librarian because again, we're in the spoiler section, she accidentally killed the other librarian. Like, what?
No, I was really interested in whenever we learn that Claire is an author, like during the
Mhm,
duel, because
mhm.
dude, like,
Yeah, Bard,
yeah,
whatever his name was, yeah.
he like takes her down with one of her own quotes. And
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, so you're not just a librarian, you're an author, and this is going to be important because it's like Chekhov's gun. You can't, you
yeah.
know. So I was excited when we got to the reveal that the woman that was helping them was actually one of Claire's characters. I wish that we would have like done a little more with that instead of it
Mhm,
just being like, oh, here is one of my characters who is going to keep us safe from the hellhounds because magic, and she also coincidentally has some of the pages that we need. Like it was a little bit just kind of like out of left field for me. It
mhm.
was something that I was expecting. I just wasn't a fan of the way that that particular reveal was like executed.
Yeah, I could see that, and again, like, the whole Codex Pages thing, I honestly just didn't care about that. Like, we needed a reason for them to keep going on whatever this adventure was, but, like, honestly, the reason didn't mean anything to me. Like, I loved the adventure they were going on, and I loved them, like, sorting out these little puzzles and duels and stuff like that, but, like, I honestly didn't care about this Codex thing. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is a thing. Eh."
I almost wish that Hero would have just been like left to run free the whole time, and the whole book is like us trying to catch him.
Yeah, more of a, like, a searching out. Although, like, it'd be hard to figure out how to make it so that a character who has randomly escaped from a book has the wherewithal to go between all these different places. So, like, the book would be very different, if you went in that direction because you wouldn't be able to go to all of these different lands because he'd have to stumble into them, and that's not the strongest writing choice, I feel, maybe.
And that would have taken out the different lands, which was, like I said, probably my favorite aspect of the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, you can tell that AJ Hackworth did, like, a bunch of different research and, like, made a point of not just making this, like, very Christianity based, which I appreciated because there are other religions. Not that I actually personally care about any religion, but, like, there are other ones. Don't just do the one.
No, my biggest suspect the entire time, I thought that Brevity was going to be a bad guy. I
Ooh,
was
that would
fully
be
waiting for
interesting.
her to like stab Claire in the back, take over Hell. She's like, "This is my domain now. Take over
Mm,
Hell's library." Not that she's
yeah, yeah,
killing
yeah.
the devil or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was very pleased with the way her character arc went. Like I said, I like the idea of a muse being in charge of a
Mhm.
library because muses give it inspiration.
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
Yeah, I really liked the switch around of her having inspiration and what she could possibly do with that. That was super interesting to me. And the fact that like now she's the new librarian, she's gonna have to sort shit out while Claire becomes the archivist. Like that's gonna be interesting to see what that new dynamic is because in kind of a way it's like trying to think of what I'm actually trying to say out loud. No, I lost the train of thought. Sorry, it's gone. Your headphones are out. Yeah.
Sorry. If you remember, we can always circle back.
Yeah, of course.
But Brevity was really fun. I really liked. I guess we haven't talked about it yet, but we're in spoilers now. So,
Yeah.
the current archivist at the time of the book, at the end of the book, Claire becomes the archivist. But Big Bad Demon Jew turns out he has been the one that has been kind of pulling the strings and
Mhm.
sort of leading them on places. And Claire is not able to go back to hell for reasons I can't remember. But she sends back Brevity, and she's like, "Okay, you're the new librarian. You're gonna like watch over everything while I'm sorting all of this stuff out." And Brevity kind of has to rally the troops, so to
Mhm.
speak, and all of the damsels. They get their shit ready and they're like fighting demons and stuff. How did you feel about the fight scenes? Because I'm not traditionally a fight scene fan, but this one was, it worked for me.
I think I liked it so much because it's such a big, like, ragtag group of characters. Like, these characters just basically hang out all the time. That's pretty much what they do. Like, they've learned some more skills if they're the types of characters that came out of books that are never going to be written. So, like, them being out of their books is not going to affect anything because their authors are dead. They can't be written, type of thing. So, like, they have learned new skills. But I love just the fact that they're like grabbing armor off shelves and like, oh, I want the sword. I'll take the axe. Like, I just loved that ragtagness to it because, like, and then like going and finding books about war and strategy and how to fight with swords and stuff like that, because of course those things will exist. There will be unwritten books about those subjects. So just the fact that they were like, we have everything at our disposal, let's figure it out in the library. I was like, ah, yeah, reading books, I love it.
There's a giant demon knocking at your door, and you're like learning how to use a crossbow.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, okay, so I pull back the trigger and then, oh, see figure C. Okay, yeah,
So, another character that we haven't talked about in spoilers is our blessed little amnesiac demon child.
I know, he's so cute. I love that there ended up being a connection, and that's why he ended up where she is, because he's a descendant of hers, right? Like, I'm not just okay, good. I'm like, it's been a month, so, like, but, yeah, no, I loved that there was a connection, so, like, the fact that they were kind of drawn to each other, and I liked that like I said before, I really enjoyed that he was our fish out of water character and, like, had to figure out that, "Oh, no, you're newly in hell, and, you take the form of a demon, but actually you were a teenage boy, and, you're just gonna figure some shit out. Have fun with that."
Yeah, he was like her great 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 grand something.
Yeah.
She never really figured it out whether he was like a nephew or a grandson
Yeah, I wanna say,
or
like, a great-grandson or something like that. I can't remember what it was, though, because she hasn't actually been dead for all that long. She's been dead for, like, 40 years or something like that, so he couldn't have been too many generations away, but, yeah, I really liked that there ended up being a connection because I always love when people like, it's a thing I like in books, when people find out that there is a connection. I'm just like, "Yes." As long as there's, like, enough, like, clues along the way to kinda figure it out. I'm like, "Okay, good. Cool. I like this."
Did you feel like there were enough clues to figure that out?
Mm. I think it caught me off guard, so maybe there weren't, but at the same time, I was just like, "Oh, this is great," because I knew there had to be some reason he showed up on the day that this whole shitstorm started. Like, I knew there had to be something, so even if I couldn't figure out what that something was ahead of time and I had to, like, maybe feel like it was slightly shoehorned in. That might have also just been because I missed something, because sometimes when I'm reading, I'm not the closest reader, and I'll have to go back and be like, "Oh, wait, yes, okay, yeah, this did actually happen. I just missed it. That's fine."
I don't remember any clues being dropped, but like you, I was
Mhm.
kind of, oh, there has to be something there.
Yeah.
And then the reveal that he, yes, committed suicide, but the archivist was behind it the entire time.
Yeah, like, I guess if you're just sitting in hell in your archives doing basically nothing, you got a lot of time on your hands to plot your dastardly things, so sure. Like, why not? It can be
I don't know.
12 seasons.
Like I said, I like the archivist being someone that Claire trusts and then being revealed to be the big bad. For me, that's a lot more satisfying than it just being like the enemy.
Yeah, somebody within your own camps is way more interesting than, like, the obvious, "This angel hates hell people." Cool. That's not interesting.
I was having sound issues. Um,
It's okay.
no, I like the reveal. I just feel like he was a little bit like hands rubby kind of. Yeah.
Mhm,
Now, Claire's spoilers. Was there
mhm,
anything that we did not talk about? We talked about the fact that she becomes the new archivist.
mhm.
Um, we talk about Ramiel and how he is now kind of like joining the Hell Squad,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that kind of like a liaison type of situation, if I'm remembering correctly, and that'll be interesting just because, like, that means we'll definitely keep him in the sphere of what's happening, so we'll still see this character. Like, I'm just really interested to see if the next book is going to be like a big adventure type of thing like this one, or like how it's going to work out because we've got so much with these characters already. There's such a big foundation after this book, and I just kind of want to see like what the arcs are going to be and uh, yeah, what you can do after this because oftentimes you'll set up something like this with a big adventure and then like what's the next thing? Just like them bickering over the type of tea that Brevity makes? Like I don't know.
And there's also like infinite worlds that they can go into, right? Because I'm
Mhm,
assuming if we have the existence of a Christian based hell, right?
mhm,
But we also have seen other underworlds. We
mhm,
have the existence of a Christian based heaven. Do we have like the more righteous side of other faith based afterlives? So I'm
mhm,
curious to see like how convoluted we can get with the strings connecting everyone because a lot of religions, despite not being a super religious person, like I've grown up in religion and that was something that rang really personally with me in this book, but a lot of them are just there's lots of connections.
mhm.
You know, there's always something that ties one to the other, and the idea of like having the dead religions or the religions that no one's ever heard of that the author is just creating for the story. I'm really curious to see like how many ones we get in book two because I think in this one we got like three.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if there's any other because like if you think about it, the Library of the Unwritten, that's literally every book that's ever existed that has not been written. So, like, is there some form of equivalent of something like that, but in like a good place instead of a bad place? I don't know, and like, what would that look like? Because obviously, you're not going to have duplicates, but you also have an interlibrary loan system. So, like, what are the other places that one want to take out the unwritten books and two what things could they be sending you on request like it's really open to like what is happening. How do they interact? I want to know.
And bringing up the fact that it's every book that's ever been unwritten throughout history, right? Because I'm assuming in the existence of this world, like
Mhm,
heaven and hell have existed before humanity, you
mhm,
know? So like how far back do we go with what is considered like the written word? Like, do we
mhm.
have books of like cave paintings that never were? Like, how far back do we go? So I hope that in the future, for the rest of the series, we get to see the world expanded more because I think, as much as I did love and connect with, I would say all the characters, um, that was the most intriguing part to me.
Yeah, just the idea of like the endless ways in which people can tell stories and like how many stories have been lost over time as well. Like, is there a place on some plane, whether it be one of the good ones or the bad ones or whatever, where like all of different like oral storytelling stories. Sorry, that was a redundant sentence, but whatever. All of the oral storytelling that people no longer have access to because it's been lost to time. Is there a place where all of those stories are? And like, how are they kept? Because they're probably not kept in a book. Are they kept in some form of old, like, sound technology, or like, are they just like a spell? I don't know. And it would be interesting to see all of the different things you could do with something like that.
And thinking about like Library of Alexandria, all of the
Mhm,
book burnings throughout history, like books
mhm.
that we don't even know exist anymore that did exist. Like, where do they go?
Yeah. Mhm, yeah, maybe they could be in the counterpart of, like, The Good Place type of situation, like the books that existed but no longer have print copies on Earth or whichever realm people live in, because there's not just Earth, there's other places, assumably.
Okay, so I think that's about all that we can talk about with the book, unless you
Mhm.
have anything else that you can think of that we didn't really cover as much.
I don't think I do, other than, like, how did you land with this by the end? I wanted to because the last time we kind of voice noted about it, you told me it had been like this, and I was like, "Where did it end up when you finished?"
So I ended up giving it a. I don't do point stars, like I don't do like 3.5. So I ended up giving it a four.
Mhm,
Um, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm glad that this is the kind of fantasy that ended up being if it was going to be a fantasy. I like a darker element, and I don't just read horror. I know that that's the primary focus of my channel, but I do like fantasy,
mhm.
and I'm glad that we got this kind of contemporary, real world esque fantasy.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I ended up giving it a 4. I think I docked a star for the big bad being kind of like wahahaha. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that would probably be why I ended up docking the star. And then also some of the plot points, like we mentioned earlier, I felt like they were just a little convoluted, I guess would be a good
Mhm,
way to put it. But I did enjoy it. But the point of this book club is for me to pick a book that you will like.
mhm.
So I know your star rating. Do you think that I succeeded in recommending a good book for you that I've never even read?
Oh, yeah, 100%, like, you did a good job. I also gave this 4 stars, and 4 stars is great for me. So, like, I wasn't coming in and being like, "If this isn't a 5 star, Bears failed." Like, that wasn't me at all. So, like, 4 star, that's great. A 3 like, even, like, a solid 3 star would be fine. If you I you know my reading taste enough that I knew I was gonna have a good time with this, and this was something I already was like, "This is a book I will eventually read," because just look at the title, it's got library in it, I'll read it. So, no, you did a very good job.
I am so glad, and I am
Yay.
glad that you were my inaugural co-host.
I was so
Um,
honored when
I
you
had a
asked
lot
me,
of
honestly,
fun.
I was just like, "Yes, yes." I was just so honored to be the first person, so thank you for that.
Of course. So that's probably all that we are going to talk about today.
Mm.
Do you want to talk about the Queer Lit Readathon a little bit because that's happening like tomorrow, right?
Sunday is when it starts. So the Queerly Readathon, for anyone who doesn't know about it, is something that was started by myself and Rogan Shannon 5 years ago. This is our 10th round because we do a round in June and we do a round in December because you should read queer all year. And then we do a couple of weekend rounds as well, just so like we remind people that we exist. Every full round, we do a bingo board. It has 16 squares on it, and you can use it any way you want. I traditionally always try to hit every single prompt because that's just how I am. I'm a little bit extra, but you can like do a line or a square or an X or completely disregard it and just read queer books. Like that's all we really want you to do at the end of the day is read queer books. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun of just being like, this is a book I've been putting off and I want to get around to it and here it is. Here's a really good time to do it. So it's a lot of fun and we also for every square that you can give recommendations for on a given bingo board because some of them are subjective like 5 star prediction that's going to be different for everyone. Leading up to the round we always post recommendations from the hosts, so myself and Rogan always have recommendations, but then we also always have a guest host, and this time it was Audrey from Perpetual Pages, which we all know and love. And they also made some really beautiful graphics for both the Twitter and the Instagram. So I was very happy with that because I am not graphically gifted, so might have been very plain in the past. But these were beautiful, and those exist forever. They'll always be on our Twitter and Instagram. This round, I also started a master list of all of the prompts we've ever had and all of the suggestions that either the hosts have given or people have posted on the Instagram posts. Because we're always like, these are the things we recommend. What do you recommend? So I've literally spent so much time just copy and pasting things into this master playlist, which you can find on my announcement video. I believe there's a link on there. On my TBR, I believe there's a link on there, and I've posted it on Twitter and Instagram a few times. So it's out there and easy to find.
One more thing I want to add with the Queer Lit Readathon, if you are going to make content about it and participate in it, closed captioning is 100% necessarily. It should be 100% necessary for everything. Um,
Mhm.
I have not been the best about it, but I've been going back and trying to close caption some of my videos. I'm hard of hearing, but the co-creator Rogan, I believe, is fully deaf.
Mhm.
So caption your stuff anyway. But if you are going to do anything for the Queer Lit Readathon, captioning is 100% a must.
Yeah, definitely, and the whole thing with captioning as well, when I first started YouTube, the auto captions were complete garbage. They did not understand anything anyone said. They have gotten so much better since then, but They're still not the best. So even if you turn on the feature that like YouTube just auto captions your videos, that's not quite enough because, for example, like I will generally let the auto captions populate and then I'll go edit them. And half the time, YouTube thinks I am saying, "Hi, YouTube, I'm caffeine." Like, sure, that's a large amount of my body sometimes. I do drink too much coffee at some point, but I am not, in fact, caffeine. And then things like punctuation and making it so your sentences actually make sense on the page is so helpful because if you're just letting the auto captions go, it's sometimes very difficult to understand what somebody's actually going on about.
Yeah, the auto captions have definitely gotten better.
Yeah.
It's a
They
lot
capital
easier for.
I now. Like, they didn't used to capitalize the word I, and that has changed my life because I used to have to, like, copy it over, put it into a Word doc, find and replace I, I'm, I'll, I've, and that would take so long. So, yeah, just caption your stuff. Just do it. It's gotten so much easier. There's no reason not to do it.
The one that I always ran into is anytime I would say "I'll," like "I will," it would autocorrect to like "aisle," like the aisle of an airplane, and I
Yeah.
would not think about it, and I would just be like, "Oh yeah, that's a word. That's spelled right," and then I would be like,
Yeah,
"Oh no, 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 that's wrong."
funnily enough, that is my, start word when I play Wordle every morning. I'll.
Mine was "ghost" for a while, and
Ooh, that's
then
a
I
good one.
switched to "stain."
Mhm. Yeah, I just wanted to get, like, enough of the vowels in there, basically, so and that's got 3 out of the 5 to 6, depending on how you look at it, so it's worked out okay for me.
I always go "stain" and then "power," just so I can knock
Yeah,
out all the vowels.
I like it. Good.
All right, well, that is going to be it for us. Thank you to everyone who joined in.
Thank you.
Next month, I am going to be joined by my friend Paula, who is the creator of Novel Tindy. Um,
Mhm.
Another thing I'm trying to do with this, besides, I'm not just choosing my friends. I want people to know I am trying to choose people who I feel like have made a really big impact for the positive on the community, who deserve a lot more notice. And Kathy, I think you have done fantastic for things for the community. You were probably the nicest person to me whenever we met at BookNet Fest.
Oh, that
Uh,
was so fun.
I called you Aunt Kathy for a while.
I mean, yeah, I had seen my nibblings quite recently, so I kept posting things about being Auntie Kathy, so, like, I understood why, and I'm totally fine with you continuing that. It's totally fine to me.
But yeah, Kathy, you were one of my first favorites in the community. Like I would watch your stuff and get queer recommendations when I was still in the closet,
Oh,
and I would yeah, like I would. It was you and Audrey were my two go tos. So yeah, I just want to thank you for all the work that you have done and all the work that you will continue to do in the future. And for anyone watching, definitely go subscribe to Kathy. I will leave links in the description. I will also leave links for the Queer Lit Readathon. And yeah, next month we're going to be reading I'm the Girl by Courtney Summers, and I will be joined by Paula. So we're going with like a YA thriller, which is very different from this.
yeah.
Okay, so thank you for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Okay,
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
It always takes so long to end these broadcasts.
I know. It's like